There is one good dramatic moment. The rest of it is like deranged fan fiction.
It's just about really wealthy people.
The product placement in this is ridiculous.
Do we know like what $1 million is as like a proportion of the estate?
Hello and welcome to Help Me I'm Poor, the money podcast that's more Peloton than pound sterling. I'm Claire.
And I'm Ellie. And each week we discuss how money shows up in some of our favourite pop culture, from the classic to the nostalgic to the contemporary.
And this week marks the final episode of our Sex and the City mini-series. I'm sad.
I know.
I'm also like, it feels almost like we did finish 2 weeks ago because that's where my headcanon of Sex and the City actually ends. But I am prepared to have so much fun talking about And Just Like That today.
Yeah, I feel like it would almost be a disservice to our listeners not to talk about it. Not because they like it, because I don't think anybody on the internet in the world likes it And Just Like That. But I do think that we have to talk about it because it's so disliked.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to tell you from the top that actually I have watched every episode of And Just Like That.
And I have a confession, which is that I have not watched it.
And we knew that we were going to do this episode, but I actually refused to allow Ellie to subject herself to And Just Like That. So basically, I am going to lead on plot points, not that there are really many.
Yeah, and I know what happens because obviously, I mean, when it first came out, it was everywhere and like I've seen loads of clips and I've read a lot about it, but I kind of through reading a lot about it, figured I wasn't going to waste my time actually watching it.
Yeah, and I think so I will talk a lot about Deborah Frances-White and her amazing podcast. The Guilty Feminist is incredible, but they did a Guilty Feminist Watches And Just Like That, where they did like an episode by episode, blow by blow thing. And she did a feature called The Rewriters Room, where she would rewrite the episode and they were always so much better than what actually went out. Because I will be honest, there is one good dramatic moment in the very first episode that is actually quite hard-hitting and nice. Or not nice, but like it feels real.
Yeah.
The rest of it is like deranged fan fiction. Honestly, I do think that people on Sex and the City fan forums could have done a better job of writing this show. It's just crazy.
And it just makes you wonder like what happened.
Yeah, well, I think it is Michael Patrick King, and there are a couple of the writers from the original writers' room, but a lot of people had moved on. Yeah. Obviously, we have no Samantha. Yeah, and the Samantha that we had in the movies was like
she was on her way off
like
anyway.
Pod person. But I think they've just been gradually replacing the personalities of these characters, honestly, because Carrie is not very like Carrie in this. Miranda has been completely replaced by a different person entirely, and this is not just with like the kind of like realizations that she has about her sexuality and coming out and stuff. I'm not really talking about that because I think that happens to quite a lot of women in midlife. I think it's perfectly valid. Love Miranda and Steve. I'm like fine with the fact that she then like ends the marriage and stuff, but it's just how she, you know, we talk so much about how she's the one that's always pushing, always challenging, always really savvy, and she's just like a sort of weird mess in all of these. And maybe it does speak to how like you maybe like lose your sense of self in midlife or something, but actually I think it's just bad writing.
I was gonna say, and I feel like it must have been so weird for like the actors as well to kind of act so differently to how they were for so many seasons, and you really kind of felt like these characters were really authentic in the seasons, and now it's just like these caricatures.
Yeah, but I think some of the actors did genuinely just lose their character almost. Like Kristen Davis, still like absolutely so gorgeous, so like lovely, but it took her a while to find her way back to Charlotte, I think. And Charlotte has almost no plot points in the whole of And Just Like That. Oh, actually, no, that's not fair. All of the actual sort of decent, like meaty things happen in the first season. So Charlotte is dealing with a situation where one of her children comes out as non-binary. They do it on TikTok without having told their parents, which is like such a Gen Alpha thing to do. And so Charlotte has to deal with the transition of her child from like rose to rock, and it's dealt with really well, actually. I think is one of the things that the series does right. But the major plot point that we have is that in the very first episode, there is a piano recital that Carrie goes to alone without Big, and it's Charlotte's daughter Lily, and there's this big, it is actually a really, really good scene. It's good TV.
I have actually seen this scene.
Yeah, the scene. So Lily is playing a very dramatic piano piece, and as it builds to a crescendo, we cut between Lily on her piano and John James Preston, aka Big, on his Peloton. He starts to feel unwell. We watch him stagger into the shower. When Carrie gets home, he is sort of slumped against the wall of their beautiful shower in their penthouse. And she is wearing the shoes, the blue shoes from the movie. And she like kneels down beside him. She's obviously like covered in water because the shower is on. He sort of looks at her, and then the very last line of that episode is, and just like that, Big died. It is an emotional moment, and it did make me cry, and it does make me well up talking about it. That is the last decent thing that happened.
It wasn't
just like that.
I remember though when that episode came out, because it was just absolutely everywhere. And I remember like as well, Peloton like shares absolutely tanked because everyone was like, oh no, Pelotons are going to kill you.
I have just written about this in our Substack, so people need to go back and find it. It's an episode about product placement, and it was about Nobody Wants This, actually, because there has like been a huge backlash against the ridiculously obvious product placement in that show. But I did use the example of Peloton's like bomb that kept exploding with this collab. So they obviously placed a Peloton in this show that was.
So do we know that
huge.
they actually did? Because I just wonder. I don't know if we actually know that was.
No, I don't know,
because I don't think you ever would. I don't think that you would ever like knowingly choose that. I just think they must have, like, the writers decided that's what it was going to be.
Potentially, I might have to go into a bit of digging about that, because there's quite a focus on the features of the Peloton if it was not a product placement. Do you know what I mean? Of like, there's one of the riders on there and stuff.
Like, it's like a notorious thing that like a lot of brands, like I know, so Apple are very, very funny with this. That they will only let iPhones be used in like positive scenes. And I just can't see how anyone in Peloton would sign off on that, because it's such an obvious problem that you're going to cause. Like, from a PR perspective, it's like catastrophic.
So, but that's not where it ends, because whether the original thing was a product placement or not, they then hired Chris Noth to be in a commercial with Ryan Reynolds, in which the idea was that he was like, oh, hey, yes, it's me, I'm alive. The Peloton didn't really kill me. However, just as that was launched, several allegations of sexual assault came out against Chris Noth, and he was rightly cancelled. And like hasn't really worked again. He was dropped from all of his different projects. And obviously we have to take that incredibly seriously. Like, it's really good that he's had to pay a price for what he has allegedly done, but from Peloton's point of view, in terms of like the PR, it's like you couldn't make it up.
No,
you couldn't make it up.
Okay, just a quick pause for a word from our sponsor, eToro.
You know how in Sex and the City the girls could talk about literally anything? Sex, breakups, babies, body hair, nothing was off limits.
They even talked about money sometimes, but weirdly not really investing or growing their wealth. Like, why were they talking about their date's net worth, but never their own?
That's why we love eToro's Loud Investing initiative. It's about making investing a normal part of the group chat.
Not just a thing that men talk about while they're at golf.
We want money conversations to feel like brunch with your best mate. Honest, fun, maybe a little bit chaotic, but super helpful and real.
Exactly. And with eToro, investing feels social. You can learn from others and build confidence without pretending that you've read The Economist from cover to cover.
So if you've ever felt like the odd one out in money conversations, eToro is your invite to the table.
No shame, no jargon, Just women investing loudly.
This episode of Help Me I'm Poor is sponsored by eToro. Search Loud Investing with eToro to find out more and join the movement.
And just so we're clear, everything we talk about here is for information and education only. It's not financial advice, personal recommendations, or an offer of any kind. Always do your own research.
eToro is a multi-asset investment platform. The value of your investments may go up or down, and your capital is at risk. Big's death catalyzes some of the really sort of interesting money stuff that comes up in Just Like That. Which is that basically when his will is read, it transpires that he has left $1 million to his ex-wife, Natasha. And so Carrie being Carrie, and this is one of the only episodes found Just Like That where Carrie is very much herself, goes nuts, stalks Natasha at her job. Like she's stalked this woman to a restaurant before, but Natasha doesn't want to see her.
I don't blame her.
She goes and like finds her in a cafe and forces her to have a conversation with her. And in the end, they kind of come to the conclusion that Big was like not very good at expressing his emotions. He expressed everything through money, which we have seen, like that is true to character, I think. And that he has left this money to Natasha as like almost sort of recompense for his past behavior. However, I do think it's really interesting to look into like if he's left $1 million to his ex, how much has Carrie
So that was
had?
going to be my first question, was like, do we know like what $1 million is as like a proportion of the estate? Because I feel like that's probably quite significant. Because
no, I don't think so.
If we like, obviously you just hear $1 million and you think that's a huge amount. Like it's not that it's not, but when it's a percentage of a much bigger pie, I feel like, you know, if Carrie was worried about her own survival financially, it would be a bit of a different question. But I don't think she is.
No, she absolutely is not.
As we see and as we know, like money is not an issue for Carrie or anybody in this program.
But it obviously puts a bee into Carrie's bonnet. And I was trying to like put myself in her shoes and think about how like you would feel if your husband died and you found out he'd left a large sum of money to an ex.
I think the two things that I think would have a huge impact on how you feel are I guess like the length of time of their relationship and like the like backstory of it. So if they were married for a significant amount of time, and it, you know, there was a good reason why the money might have been left to them, and then also how much that money is compared to the overall piece of like the overall pie, like what slice of pie is it? Because again, if we're, you know, talking about in a normal person's life, I'm imagining that that's probably not going to be like most of their wealth. I'm guessing it's maybe like a couple of grand. Like, and, you know, it might be that he like owed her for something or that he just felt really bad that he'd left her a bit high and dry. Like, do you know what I mean? I think that if it was like a not ridiculous thing to have done, then I don't think the principle in and of itself I have an issue with. I'd have preferred to know, but I mean, arguably, you should probably have looked at your wills beforehand.
Like, how does Carrie not know what's in his will?
Because Carrie doesn't think
together for such a long time.
Carrie doesn't think about these things.
I don't know if my husband would like make a will if I didn't force him to. So, like, do you know what I mean? I do think it's odd, and there is still like always just this light bit of distance and mystery in Carrie and Big's relationship, I think, because her immediate like conclusion that she jumps to is like, were they having an affair? So which is why she's like goes completely nuts. But I just think talk to your partner about their wills, guys. Like seriously, if you're listening to this, you don't want a shock like this.
No,
if anything happens.
But again, I've read this relatively recently that there has been a real rise again in like the last like 5-10 years of will disputes. And
interesting.
I do think a lot of it is obviously because people don't talk about money enough, but I wonder whether it's because like things are kind of more contentious, things are more difficult financially, just economically, I think people maybe are a bit more willing to fight over what they think they're entitled to as well. Because like, if, you know,
that was my first thought.
yeah, if things were like all free flowing and abundant and everyone had lots of money, you'd be like, I can get over it. But actually, when people feel like, okay, well, maybe this inheritance is the answer to help me, and then you don't get it, then you might be more like, I'm actually going to argue about this. But it does like make you really think, and especially if you've got complicated like family dynamics, because I have like my family on like all sides are actually quite complicated in terms of like marriages, remarriages, divorces, stepchildren, whatever. And my dad actually got married a couple of years ago, and the way that he announced it to me, he'd been with his now wife for over 10 years, and he rang me up and was like, oh, we've decided to get our affairs in order, and so we're getting married. I was like, I really hope that's not what you said to Helen. Like, I really hope that you kind of said something a bit more romantic than that.
That does sound like Carrie and Big's proposal from the last episode. Not last episode of this, the Sex and the City movie.
But I think like so many people like just don't want to talk about it, and it's so important. Like, I know even with my grandparents, because they had a very complicated like non-divorce arrangement set up, and my mum and my aunt really had to like push them to get their wills in order, so that like people weren't just left like high and dry that had been living in the house for 30 odd years, like we said.
I think wills are so uniquely difficult to talk about, because you're basically saying to the person like, this, like, you're gonna die.
But we are.
So no, we absolutely are. But I think that's the thing of like, it almost feels like you're saying to them, okay, yeah, you'll be dead, but what I want to know is what's going to happen with the money. And it feels like a really uncomfortable conversation to have, but it is such an important one to have. And like, have it with your partner, have it with your husband or wife, have it with your kids, have it with your parents. Like, please have these conversations. Because it's really important.
You don't want to end up surprised like Carrie.
No, absolutely not. And like, definitely don't do what she did and like stalk some poor woman across New York. But yeah, I mean, that's to be honest, when I was looking back through, it was the only like sort of quite juicy money thing that we could talk about.
Other than, I guess, the whole theme.
Yeah, exactly.
Of money.
No, exactly. So that was the only like incident, I suppose. But then what we really want to talk about is and it's based on a couple of articles, but notably one in the Atlantic a few months ago, which was while the final series of And Just Like That was going out, there was an article. It's called Money is Ruining Television. It's by Sophie Gilbert. And it's so good. I'm going to read a little excerpt because it really sums up the whole thing. Basically, there's no conflict in this show, and it's been talked about on every different like watch along podcast that I listened to, and I needed to because I needed the therapy of it, right? I listened to all of them, and it's that these people don't have any conflicts or any real problems, because all of their problems can be and are solved by money. And so the excerpt is this: the point of the show is no longer what happens, because nothing does. The point is to set up a series of visual tableaus showcasing all the things money can buy, as though the show were an animated special issue of Vogue or Architectural Digest. What's stranger still is that a series that once celebrated women in the workplace has succumbed to financial ideals right out of Edith Wharton. The women who earned their money themselves, Miranda and Seema, somehow don't have enough of it. Spoiler, they still seem to have quite a lot. While the ones who married money, Carrie, Charlotte and Lisa, breeze through life as an array of lunches, fundraisers and glamping trips, with some creative work dotted into the mix for variety. The banal details of exorbitant wealth. Well, it's all quite boring. Yeah, it just sums up the whole thing. And I think that we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Where the conflict is removed because everyone is too rich and they've got the means to solve their problems, so everything can just go away.
Yeah, although I do think that it's interesting because it's such a theme, and in this article then the writer does also talk about other shows as well where this is the case, because it's a real kind of common thread that we're seeing in a lot of TV nowadays, where it's just about really wealthy people. And I guess she does kind of point out that, like, although there is this, a lot of it, well, there is this tendency, I guess, to, I guess, make them unhappy in some of these shows, because just almost say, like, money doesn't solve your problems. Like, I've got so much money and I've still got these miserable, like, things
Yeah,
going on
like
in
the
my
White
life, or
Lotus.
yeah, like White Lotus is the perfect example. And if you've not watched that episode, then go back and listen to it. But we see it, and another show that we've not yet talked about, which hopefully we will in the future, is Succession, and that is like the epitome of this. It's like wealth on steroids, but they're all so bloody miserable.
But I think Succession really goes to show that with incredible writing, you can absolutely explore the inner lives of really wealthy people and make incredible television.
Whereas
and
this,
just like that is not that. Like, I don't really think that the fact that they have money is what ruins the show. I think it's that the writers just didn't know what to do with any of these characters.
Yeah.
But I do think that if they had put some financial conflict in there, it might have helped to liven up the show a little bit.
There could have been some layers to it, whereas it just is all very surface level, like ladies who lunch and brunch and shop.
Because the original series did such an amazing job of making us think and talk about money, right? And this one, it just doesn't exist as an issue. But one of the things that I've seen suggested by a couple of people, Juno Dawson and also Deborah Francis White, is that, and it would have been such a great plot point, is that when Big died at the reading of the will and when everything came out in the wash, it could have come out that he'd made a few bad investments. He was drowning in debt, and actually Carrie was left with not nothing, but maybe just her own assets.
And having to rebuild a little bit again and start again.
And just making it not quite so flash and superficial and ridiculous. But unfortunately, that ship has sailed. And I do think that it is an example. This is probably the perfect example of how making your characters too rich without anything more complex going on can really ruin a show. And I mean, one of the other things I brought up just earlier is that the product placement in this is ridiculous. So it's all named brands. It does feel a bit like you're watching it through an Instagram filter. They go to a launch at Tiffany and Lisa's trying to get her husband to take Ozempic, the brand name, So I think, it's just.
Do you think that there's an element as well, though, maybe of the fact that they wanted to commercialize it so much that has led it to being so shallow? I don't know whether it's easier to sell a TV show and product placement to brand if you've got quite a nice story. Do you know what I mean? Rather than if you've got all of this drama and it's a bit gritty, are brands as easily going to say, take my money?
But I think that there was quite a lot of brand sponsorship and product placement in the original Sex and the City. It's just that it was woven much better into the storylines. And actually, I don't think people mind or even notice if the product placement is
done
really
well
woven in.
That's
but
so
when
true.
You've got a situation whereby they're all going to XYZ thing for no other reason than it's a product placement, and nothing happens while they're there, and then the thing is never spoken of again. This is where it just
it's clunky.
It's advertorial. That's what the whole thing is like. It's like that page that you skip in the middle of a magazine. I don't know. I really felt compelled to watch because I don't like the idea of these characters having a life without me. I also do wish that wasn't my personality, because I do wish I hadn't watched it, apart from the fact that we've been able to record this episode and I've been able to get some stuff off my chest, but also hopefully it's been cathartic for our listeners as well.
And I think all we can hope is that, as you said, that SJP does not succeed in her bid to get the rights, and that this really is the end of the universe.
Let's let it lie, and then over the years we can forget that it ever happened. I think one of the main offensive things about and just like that is when you go back and watch the original series and you're like, oh God, I'm so sorry. What have they done to you? It really feels that way. But that's it. That's the end. the end of Sex and the City, the end of the universe.
It's quite sad, really, because it feels like, you know, I would like it to be like, oh, I'm really sad it's over. But by this point, it's not really that sad that it was over. It was like, but I wish it was over a few years ago. But
in the finale episode, there is literally a full frontal shot of a poo stuck in a toilet. And I think that about sums everything up. So
on that note,
thank you so much for listening to our mini-series, our Sex and the City mini-series. We will be back in your ears very, very soon. We've got big plans.
We hope you've loved this mini-series as much as we've loved recording it. And please do share it, review it, write us a note, let us know what your thoughts are, and also let us know what mini-series you'd like to see in the future.
Yes, we would really love to know, because I think there are some shows that we could get into in the same depth, that we could really deep. But we want to know what you think we should do next. If for some bonkers reason this is the only episode of the miniseries that you've listened to, please go back and listen to the other episodes.
There are 8 others.
Yeah, exactly. And remember why it is that you love these characters in this universe, because you're not going to get that from it just like that. No. But yeah, we will be back in your ears very soon. Please, if you miss us, subscribe to our Substack. It's with you every Sunday, and it's more of the same sort of pop culture money takes. But for now, it's goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.